Thanks for clicking on the video. If you like what you hear, please drop a comment and say hi. It'd help me out a lot.
They called it Valis 3, but to most of the galaxy, it was just the third moon of the gas giant Virith. It didn't have breathable air or tectonic activity or even native microbes, but it had gravity, a stable surface, and the most important thing in modern galactic diplomacy, neutrality. A fleet drifted in silence above its pale horizon, 2 warships from opposite ends of the stars, and 1 absurdly small diplomatic cruiser from Earth. In the stone-gray hall of the Accord Chamber, an ancient structure cut into the moon's obsidian plateau, glowing glyphs traced stories of treaties passed along the walls. Inside, the air was kept at an agreeable 0.9 standard atmosphere, rich in neutral gas so nobody could complain. Except humans, they always found something. Ambassador Elias Novak didn't sit at the long, polished table. He leaned against it, one boot up on the chair like he was waiting for room service, not representing an entire species. He wore no robes, no metal-lined jacket, just a black shirt, worn slacks, and a diplomatic pin that he claimed wasn't supposed to light up but keeps doing it anyway. Across the table sat Desire Collective, 6-eyed, ash-skinned, and armored in shimmering chitin. They radiated calculated malice like it was a diplomatic perfume. Their envoy, Commander Drellick, spoke only in cold statements that somehow felt like threats. On the opposite side sat the Valari Ascendancy, tall, crystalline beings whose translucent skin refracted the chamber's lights into ghostly rainbows. Their speaker, First Orator Celian, hadn't stopped humming since the session began. Some said it was cultural. Others said it was a warning frequency. And in the middle of this interstellar pressure cooker was Elias Novak, the human wildcard, looking like he was late for a brunch he didn't want to attend. "So," Elias finally said, breaking the silence, "which one of you wants to blink first?" The room did not appreciate humor. "The Ascendancy will not disarm first," said Celian, voice ringing like 2 glasses tapping underwater. "To disarm is to be vulnerable. To be vulnerable is to invite betrayal." Across the table, Commander Drellick responded without moving his face or any other part of his body. His voice clicked through a vocalizer embedded beneath his plating. "The collective does not require invitation. Betrayal is standard operating procedure." The Valari delegation let out a harmonic vibration. It might have been a gasp, might have been a power-up tone. Elias Novak scratched his cheek and turned to the room's center panel, a flat touch interface humming quietly under his fingers. He tapped it once. The projection screen displayed a galactic map with their respective territories outlined in crimson and azure. "You know," he said casually, "from up here, your little war looks like 2 people arguing over who owns the fire in a burning building." Silence. Elias smirked. "Look, I get it. You both want to win. But that's not what this is about. This meeting, it's not to end the war. It's to make sure neither of you loses it by accident." Celian's eyes shimmered. "You assume war is a thing we wish to avoid." "No," Elias said, voice flat. "I assume neither of you wants to lose face on a galactic livestream. Because, I assure you," he pointed skyward, "everyone's watching." Commander Drellick shifted, a signal, subtle, calculated. "If the Ascendancy offers cessation of aggression along the Brelith line," he said slowly, "the collective may consider halting orbital strikes on disputed colonies." Celian turned, upper body fracturing the light in all directions. "We will not halt strikes while your fleets remain cloaked near the Mercian belt." "Then let's uncloaking be the first move," Elias said. "Mutual transparency. No violence. Just a little interstellar flashing." Both sides looked at him. "That's a joke," he clarified. "Mostly." The room dimmed. It wasn't a malfunction. It was a message. A low-frequency pulse shuddered through the Accord Chamber's walls, invisible to the eye, but impossible to ignore. The stone table hummed. The Valari flickered slightly. Desire didn't move, but their bodyguard units stepped forward exactly 1 centimeter, in perfect unison. Celian tilted their crystalline form toward Elias. "A display of patience is not weakness. But we grow tired." Commander Drellick remained silent. He didn't need to speak. The collective's posturing was clear. Stall us, and we escalate. Elias exhaled slowly. Then, without warning, he stood, walked to the side wall, and tapped his knuckle twice against one of the embedded viewports. It flickered. And then it revealed Earth. Projected, of course, full color, high resolution, and spinning slowly. He didn't say anything for a long moment. Then, with calculated ease, he said, "Do you know what we did before we got invited to this table?" Cillian's eyes narrowed. "We fought each other," Elias said. "A lot. Over land, over oil, over flags and faith and names that nobody remembers anymore." He took a few steps toward the table. "And then we figured out something important. War isn't about who's right. It's about who's left." Cillian responded with cold curiosity. "Is this meant to frighten us?" Elias shook his head. "No, this is meant to remind you that the last time two powerful sides thought they were too proud to stand down, we turned entire continents into ash. And we did it without half the technology you now have." The room was silent again. Then Drellick, finally, spoke. "You threaten extinction to enforce diplomacy?" Elias smirked, not unkindly. "No, I remind you what it looks like when diplomacy fails." He tapped the projector again. The image of Earth flickered into a display of neutral colonies caught in the middle, refugees, ruined trade routes, scorched atmospheres. "You want to be remembered as conquerors?" Elias asked. "Fine, but you won't be remembered by the people you conquer, only by the damage you leave behind." He sat back down. "Now, who wants to be the first to prove they've got a functioning brainstem?" The official session was paused for environmental recalibration, which was diplomat speak for everyone needs a moment before they kill each other. Elias stood alone in a side chamber, a tall, narrow room lined with soft amber lighting and privacy dampeners, the kind of place where whispered decisions shaped the destinies of species. He was halfway through a lukewarm cup of synth tea when the doors slid open. A ZA envoy stepped inside, smaller than Drellick, thinner plating, but eyes just as calculating. Their voice buzzed with oily charm. "You speak well for a primitive." Elias didn't look up. "And you sneak well for a diplomat." The envoy smiled with too many teeth. "The collective admires efficiency. Your threats, while crude, had effect. Commander Drellick is curious." Elias tilted his head. "You don't do curious. You do ambushes." "Call it a proposal," Desire said. "Help us discredit the ascendancy during this process. Delay a vote. Insert noise. And in return, Earth receives priority trade lanes through the Reskian corridor." Elias blinked slowly. Bribing a human. How refreshingly blunt. "You are not neutral, no matter your colors." Elias set the cup down. "You're right. I'm not neutral." He stepped forward, voice low. "I'm human. That means I remember what it's like to watch families burn over something as stupid as pride. It means I won't sell peace for shipping lanes." The envoy's eyes narrowed. "So you'll risk war instead?" Elias leaned in, voice like steel. "No, I'll risk you losing your monopoly on fear." Desire didn't reply. They turned, stepping back through the door like a shadow peeling away. As soon as they were gone, Elias exhaled, long, slow, and rubbed his temples. "God, I miss Earth coffee." Back in the Accord chamber, the air smelled faintly of ionized tension. The Valari had changed formation, no longer aligned side by side, but now encircling Cillian in a semi-symmetric triangle. To most species, it looked ceremonial. To anyone who'd spent enough time around them, it was the Valari equivalent of circling the wagons before unleashing a diplomatic nuke. Cillian's voice rang like wind chimes under pressure. "The collective cannot be trusted. Their word is a shattered mirror, reflective, but never whole." Drellick, unmoved, replied in his standard tectonic rumble. "And your people fracture every truth into a prism of excuses. At least we lie with purpose." Elias sat with his arms crossed, eyes flicking between the two parties like someone watching a chess match where the pieces were armed and twitchy. "You both make a compelling case," he said, voice dry. "Shall I just flip a coin and assign blame based on gravity?" Neither side responded. Elias leaned forward. "The truth is, this isn't about your borders. It's about who gets to decide what peace looks like after the dust settles. And frankly," he shrugged, "you're both bad at pretending to care." Cillian's glow dimmed, slightly. "You accuse us of selfishness?" "No," Elias said. "I accuse you of forgetting what the rest of the galaxy sees when it watches you bicker. Thousands dead, millions displaced, and two empires screaming about protocol while the colonies in between burn." Drellick's eye ridges contracted. a dire signal for restraint barely held. And what does Earth suggest? Capitulation? Elias stood. I suggest you stop treating the negotiation like a theater and start acting like people who'll have to face history afterward. He pointed to the hovering recording drone in the corner of the room, blinking silently. Because they're already writing the chapter, and so far it reads like a bad tragedy. For the first time, both delegations fell silent. Not because they agreed, but because, for the first time, they were listening. The silence in the chamber was heavy, expected, the kind that only arrives when someone just said something everyone else was too afraid to say. Elias stood at the center of the room now, the galactic map flickering behind him like a heartbeat. You want to win, he said, pacing slowly, but you're stuck in a game where no one walks away intact. So I propose this. He paused, letting their attention root itself in his words. A joint zone, shared stewardship, not occupied, not conquered, not divided. Shared. Salian's outer form pulsed in jagged flashes. Such arrangements breed betrayal. Drellick gave a clicking grunt, or incompetence. Elias nodded, not arguing. Probably, but you'll both be too busy watching each other to shoot anyone else. He tapped the map. Draw a line down the disputed systems. Form a neutral course staffed equally by both your people and third-party observers, Earth volunteers included. The room bristled. You offer yourselves as peacekeepers, Drellick said, unaligned yet embedded. Elias's grin returned, razor-thin. Exactly. We're annoying enough to keep you honest, and we die loudly if you screw up. Great deterrent. Salian tilted their crystalline form. And what if your presence inflames tensions? Elias shrugged. Then we pull out. But if we leave and the fighting resumes, you both lose the last ounce of legitimacy you've got left. He stepped back, arms open. This isn't peace. It's pause. Long enough to remember you're part of something bigger than your own pride. Drellick exchanged a silent signal with his adjutants. Salian did the same, their harmonic tone shifting to near ultrasound. Elias waited. And then, for the first time, the two delegates looked at each other, not just at him. The final vote was silent. Not in action. There were gestures, tonal shifts, flashes of bioluminescence, coded blinks, and subharmonic emissions. But the moment it happened, there was stillness. The kind that didn't come from a ceasefire. The kind that came from a choice. The holographic map shifted one final time, showing the new line drawn in neutral silver. A demilitarized arc across once contended space now labeled simply Zone 3, Joint Observation and Recovery Region. Below it, in slightly smaller font, Oversight by neutral third party, Earth Diplomatic Corps. Elias didn't smile. Not really. Just exhaled, slow and steady, like he'd been holding his breath since landing. The drone overhead blinked green. Transmission archived and verified. Galactic Accord status. Updated. Salian rose first, bowing, not in subservience but in acknowledgement, a motion rarely directed at anyone outside the ascendancy. Drellick nodded, once, like steel admitting the presence of gravity. Neither spoke as they exited the chamber. Elias remained behind for a moment, alone, staring at the agreement hovering in midair. We didn't solve it, he muttered. A low voice from behind. No, but you stopped it from unraveling further. He turned. It was the Valari's secondary envoy, quiet, observant, and, apparently, still present. Why us? Elias asked. Why put Earth in the middle of this? The envoy tilted its head. Because your species is unpredictable, emotional, reckless, and somehow you understand what it means to lose everything. Elias looked back at the map. Yeah, he said softly. We've had practice. The envoy bowed and disappeared into the corridor. Alone, Elias Novak reached into his coat, pulled out a dented metal flask and raised it quietly toward the moon's pale ceiling. To peace, he muttered. Or at least, a chance at it. He drank. The stars above watched silently.